Chapter 16, Gruesome Find. Author notes, "Hi everyone, sorry it took so long. I think I am suffering from writer's block. Isn't easy setting up a whole new base. I should have started off from the middle. I think that would have been easier. Besides, most of my ideas are all for that part." Pout. Furthermore, I kind of went emo for a while, confessed to my crush and got rejected badly. Guess too much pressure and stress made me crumble, but I should be fine now. Oh yay, should I do a whole Quidditch scene or can I just forgo it? What you all think? QA, Eclipse X. Yes. He will for now. Tongue. Chapter 16, Gruesome Find. Potter. 10 points from Gryffindor for daydreaming. Harry jumped with fright as Professor Snape shouted at him from behind the class. The Christmas break is over and class has quickly resumed as normal. Hermione and Ron were delighted to see that he had survived Christmas alive due to the fact that Harry and Professor Snape were in the castle together with no Neville for Professor Snape to focus on. Discussions on Professor Quirrell's well-being were of course carried out among themselves. Even so, nothing came to light. In the end, Ron just labeled him as barmy and left it there. Harry didn't think so. Like Hermione said, the dog was there for a reason. He wanted to know why. The Quidditch season is coming up. Quidditch Captain Wood has been driving everyone nuts. Every single player was ready to declare mutiny. Most of their free time has been spent out on the Quidditch field, under a hot stifling sun accompanied by a warm sweltering breeze. Rushing around in those conditions on the room makes everyone feels like they are being baked in an oven. To make things worse, Oliver makes them wear full uniform with a reason of something along the lines of them having to get used to the cloaks dragging them down and not used to fighting in them. The only person that seems unaffected is Oliver. Even after a whole day of training in the hot afternoon sun, he is still as perky as ever to the annoyance of his teammates. The only reason he even ever ends the training is that the Weasley twins start shooting the bludgers at him every single time by the time the sun starts setting. Hence, all the extra training is indirectly causing Harry to be too tired to ponder over anything. He had started to daydream in classes, trying to picture scenarios of the dog and the professor and their connection. Flushing, Harry focused back on the essay he was supposed to be writing, but not before seeing Hermione shooting him a disapproving look. Sweat was dripping down Harry's face as he swerved around the stand of the Quidditch pitch. Oliver had everyone practicing drills and now was having a mock practice. Again, Harry was desperately looking for the snitch with mild annoyance. He had already caught the snitch 15 times and this was just getting ridiculous. The sun was starting to set and it was casting golden rays everywhere, painting a very beautiful scenery, although not a single player had the time to appreciate it. Suddenly, a golden flash caught Harry's eyes. With a sigh of relief, he dived forward and plucked the snitch right out of the air, waving his hands to signal to Oliver, who was keeper and guarding the goalposts and one side of the pitch. Oliver nodded and blew a whistle. Everyone stopped and flew towards him expectantly. Everyone was ragged and tired and Katie Bell was wincing and stretching her sore arm that got hit by a bludger. Even Oliver was drenched in sweat, but he was still grinning like a fool and Harry felt his heart sank. "Okay team, good job, but I think we should practice the butterfly a broken bar." Seeing everyone glared at him, Oliver faltered and finally sighed. "Fine, practice is over. Meet back tomorrow at 3 sharp. Everyone started muttering and groaning but nevertheless landed and headed towards the lockers. Harry on the other hand quickly flew towards Hagrid's house, which wasn't far from the pitch. Madara was waiting for him at the edge of the Forbidden Forest when he landed. "You stink," hissed Madara. "Sri, not my fault is it?" hissed back Harry tiredly. "No, it isn't," hissed back the snake fondly, shaking its head. The little serpent has seen Harry's practice session firsthand before and understands. Madara then proceeded to slither up Harry's outstretched arm and under the sleeve of Harry's robe. The snake however quickly slithered out of the neck hole in a hurry, causing Harry to look down in surprise. "You are too hot," the snake complained. Harry chuckled and watched the snake pondered before sliding down to curl around the head of the broom. Too tired to worry about being caught, Harry kicked off the ground and smiled in amusement when he saw Madara try to squeeze the life out of the broom tightly. They rose higher and higher and Harry was about to turn back when a gust of wind swept past from the Forbidden Forest. Harry's uniform was blown out of proportion and he had to stop and arrange his uniform when Madara said wait. Curious, Harry glanced at the snake that was looking at him with an alarmed expression. The snake's body was tensed. "Something is wrong," There was something in the wind, and it tasted like the school. You mean someone is in the forest? Harry glanced at the expanse of forest that was stretched out below them. Yes, hissed the snake urgently. Sighing, Harry glanced towards the forest before looking at the snake. You do know we aren't allowed in the forest, right? Looking at Madara's intense stare, Harry gave another sigh of resignation. Lead the way. Following Madara's orders, Harry slowly floated over the treetops. The canopy was really thick and he can hardly see the forest floor. They weren't far from the castle, but it was far enough to make Harry wonder how he will call for help if they get in trouble. Suddenly, Madara nodded downwards. Harry spotted a small clearing among the trees and headed towards it before carefully landing in the middle forest. Together, they dismounted from the broom and looked around. The trees were huge and ancient, most of them covered in other vegetation like moss. There were vines and creepers hanging down from some of the trees, but the forest floor wasn't thick, probably due to the lack of sunlight, thought Harry. Carefully, Harry followed Madara, who had slithered off urgently. He stepped carefully as the floor was covered in rotting vegetation and was slippery. It was then something silvery caught his eye on a nearby bush. Curious, Harry walked over to inspect it. It was some sort of liquid. It was slivery in colored and is emitting a soft silvery glow. It looked like it was splattered on the bush. Then, Harry realized with alarm that it was still wet, still fresh. Turning around, Harry glanced around warily. He listened carefully, but there was nothing except the chirping of some random bird he could not see. Then, he saw more of it. Some on another tree sapling nearby, some on a few other bushes, and there was a light trail leading off into the dense vegetation. The glow from the trail of liquid was giving the forest an eerie look. Harry spun around in surprise. He realized he could not see Madara and cursed. Quickly, Harry tried to follow the direction of Madara's voice. It was coming from where the trail of liquid leads off. It took only a few steps, and as Harry rounded a tree, he gave a gasp. He was in a small clearing that dipped downwards, but the scary part was the whole area was covered in the silvery liquid. The center of the indentation in the ground was glowing slightly. His nostrils was also invaded by a strong scent, and Harry wrinkled his nose. It wasn't bad, but it smelled like fresh water, faint yet distinct at the same time. Harry walked forward slowly and his eyes widened in shock. In the little dip of the ground was a carcass of a horse. No, not just any horse, Harry realized. It was a unicorn. The dead unicorn was sprawled on its side, its legs entwined together. It looks like the poor creature fell in and had died there. The unicorn's silvery mane was fan-out and messy, slightly dirty. The unicorn's eye was open, staring sightlessly at the sky, the usual gleam gone. The whole carcass was covered in the same silvery liquid, and Harry realized with horror that it was the unicorn's blood. There were 5 huge gashes along the unicorn's flank, and the blood seems to still be oozing out. Harry felt his breath speed up and bile rising in his throat. A sudden movement that caught the edge of his eye caused him to yell and whipped around so fast that he fell down. He was breathing heavily and his heart was thudding before he realized it was just Madara. The snake looked at him in concern, but seeing Harry was fine then turned to look at the carcass. Ghastly, ain't it? Seeing Harry's stunned expression, Madara bowed his head and slithered over to the stricken boy to comfort him. What do you think happened? Harry whispered when his breathing started to calm down. I don't know, but it wasn't an animal. Harry glanced at the snake surprised. The Hogwarts scent is on the unicorn, Madara explained. Whoever did it, it was from school. Harry paled visibly. Don't worry, I am sure there was a very good reason, the snake added hastily. However, all Harry did was gave him an incredulous stare. Together, they sat there quietly for a few minutes. Maybe we should harvest the unicorn, suggested the snake. What? Harry yelped. It is dead. I doubt it will mine. Besides, the ingredients are very valuable, said Madara in a matter-of-fact voice. How do you know that? Asked Harry suspiciously. Professor Snape mentioned it in class. Harry and Hermione emphasis on it too once, admonished Madara. You listened to Professor Snape? Obviously, replied the snake, rolling its eyes. Fine. And how do you propose we harvest it? I didn't bring anything, remember? You have your wand, right? And your Quidditch robes. Wrap it around them. Professor McGonagall taught you how to transfigure a Jor, remember? Us the spell silly. Boot a broken bar. Boot a broken bar. Harry waved his arms wildly. What? It feels wrong, muttered Harry. The snake gave a sigh. I know, but the unicorn is already dead. Do you think it wants to die in vain? I know I wouldn't, Harry cast his eyes downwards and sighed. Fine, the thinks you make me do broken bar. He stood up and muttered darkly to himself. Sorry love, didn't quite catch that. Hissed the snake in amusement as it watched Harry went to transfigure a few stones into jars. Chapter 17. Confusion. Author's note. Hi everyone, I am back. I am really sorry I was absent for the past few months. Life was hectic and I got my first heartbreak. Damn, that suck. Anyway, it is my school holidays now. Hopefully I can write more frequently. Furthermore, it is my morbid embarrassment to admit that I have no idea how to end this particular story since there are people who want me not to copy the original, including me. Sigh, let's see what I can come up. Suggestions would also be nice. D. Oh yay, there is something inside that some people might like. More like a hint. Don't get mad, okay? Chapter 17. Confusion. You look terrible, mate. Harry and Ron were walking towards the library slowly. They had promised Hermione to meet her there. Harry glanced tiredly at Ron as they passed through another shadowy corridor. His face was haggard and black rings were starting to show under his eyes. Truth was, Harry had not been sleeping well. The guilt of harvesting the unicorn's body parts was eating him alive. They had taken the horn, a few jars of unicorn blood, all the unicorn hair and the entire tail. All of it is now carefully stored at the bottom of Harry's trunk. Madara was slightly pleased, but Harry still felt queasy. He had been dreaming of that lifeless carcass for the past few days and waking up with cold sweat along his brow. Those nightmares were starting to take a toll on him and he was seriously tired. Therefore, so blurry-eyed he was that when he rounded the next bend, Harry wasn't looking at where he was going. The next moment, he crashed into something warm and solid. He and the other boy both went tumbling down together, landing on the ground in a heap. Murmuring an apology, Harry glanced up and caught a glance of pale blonde hair. The next moment, he was face to face with a pair of furious gray eyes. Alarmed, Harry shot up and scrambled backwards before getting up awkwardly with the help of Ron. Goyle and Crabbe were helping Malfoy up, who was starting to turn red in the face. Angrily, he glared at the duo. Potter, watch where you are going. I would have thought Gryffindors are as sharp as a lion, or is that just a symbol to cover your uselessness? Tiredly, Harry responded, I said I was sorry. Sorry isn't good enough, Potter. You should do my bidding for knocking over me like that. Furious, Ron moved forward. Harry immediately grabbed him, looking at Ron's mad face. No, leave it, he isn't worth it. He promptly walked along with Ron in tow, ignoring Malfoy and his goons. Harry felt his arm being grabbed though and looked into Goyle's impassive face. Goyle pulled his fist back and Harry lifted up his hands and flinched away. Ron gave a yell and jumped forward but was pulled back by Crabbe, who grabbed onto the struggling Ron. Harry, stunned by his good fortune, the group turned around and saw Oliver Wood and another familiar boy with wavy blonde hair and Hufflepuff robes were hurrying up to them. You, put him down. Seeing Goyle hesitate, the other boy roared louder. Now, I am a prefect, and unless you want me to call Professor Sprout, let him go. Crabbe and Goyle immediately let go and Harry and Ron scrambled backwards towards Oliver. Oliver glared at the trio. Well, what are you waiting for? Leave. With a last glare at Harry, Malfoy and his goons turned around and stalked away, footsteps echoing throughout the empty corridor. Once they are gone, Harry looked up at Oliver and muttered thanks. Oliver flashed a smile at Harry and patted him. You are welcome. Try not to get into trouble, will you? Our last game isn't that far off. No point you getting broken bones left and right. Of course, Potter is the new Gryffindor Seeker, isn't he? I forgot. Glancing at the last boy, Harry with a start realized why he seemed so familiar. Hi Harry. Harry smiled shyly. Thanks. You are Irma Broken Bar, Reddy a Broken Bar, Sari a Broken Bar, Cedric Diggory, right? The one and only. And call me Cedric. The boy swelled with pride at being remembered. Harry smiled and Oliver glanced at the both of them confused. You two know each other? Cedric helped me with my luggage at the train on the first day, Harry explained. Ah, I see, Oliver said and glanced with pride at Cedric. The poor boy blushed gently and Harry and Ron looked at the both of them in confusion. Ron looked around awkwardly and cleared his throat. Well, thanks Oliver, thanks Cedric, but we have to go. Hermione is waiting for us at the library. Yeah, you are right Ron, let's go before Hermione gets mad. Bye Oliver, Cedric, and thanks. The both of them turned around and left. The two older boys yet seemed oblivious to their departure. with Oliver still looking at the blushing Cedric. Once they were far enough, Ron looked at Harry. "What do you think is wrong with them?" Harry sighed. "It's really none of our business." Hearing this, Ron glanced at him in concern. "You seem really tired." "What's wrong?" Alarmed, Harry stood up at attention. "No, nothing's wrong. Why would anything be wrong? Did someone say something's wrong? I mean a broken bar." Seeing Ron raised his eyebrows, Harry sighed. "Come on, Hermione's waiting." "Let's go. I am just tired, that's all." Quietly, Harry trudged along forwards. Ron followed behind him, his eyebrows furrowed, puzzled over his friend's attitude. The library was the same as ever, dusty and quiet, with Madame Pince was once again in her corner behind the comptoir, with a scowl on her face and reading some book. She glanced and glared at them before returning to her book. Harry and Ron nervously scurried by her and looked for Hermione. They found her at a corner, a huge book in hand. They sat down and greeted her as Hermione put her book down and greeted her with a flush on her face. They waited patiently. I found it." Bewildered, they looked at each other before looking at her again. Hermione clicked her tongue noisily in annoyance before continuing. "That dog. It was a Cerberus. It was myth by the Greeks and Romans to be the guardian of the gates to hell. It used to be a sign of bad omen. Even so, that was actually a mistake. Cerberus are unique in the way that it has 3 heads. Each head can function differently and feel a different emotion at the same time. Therefore, it is quite rare, as most Cerberus heads tend to disagree among themselves and end up hurting each other, thus killing themselves. As long as one head dies, so does the beast. It falls asleep in contact with music and makes very powerful guard dogs." Taking in a deep breath, Hermione glanced at them excitedly. Still confused, Harry and Ron looked at each other. "So, what's that got to do with us?" Sighing and rolling her eyes, Hermione looked at him pointedly and started speaking very slowly. "It means, Ron, that whatever the Cerberus was guarding, it is extremely important. You saw yourself. Even Professor Quirrell got hurt trying to get past it, and he's a teacher. I wonder what it is guarding though." "But Hermione, why would Professor Quirrell try to get past it in the first place?" Harry asked, confused. Hermione's face clouded over immediately. "I don't know, Harry. I don't know.